Free speech protected.
The following is independently produced programming. The views and opinions expressed are those of the producers and do not reflect the views and opinions of Falls Area Community Television, our staff, or board of directors.
Secrets in the shadows, lost and found. Truth in every echo, loud and clear. Keep on with the long road, no more fear. In the halls of power, whispers grow. Every secret cracked beneath the undertone. Honest stories hidden in the glass. On this long road, in the truth we trust.
Welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Chris Roberts. And I've got two topics, but there was one that popped up today that just totally irritates me. And I think it's so self-centered. This one's in Florida. And I can't believe how people could do this. They could think this way. The individual who's saying most of this is a medical doctor that taught at Harvard and did research at Harvard and is Harvard educated. But it really goes to show how low and manipulating people will get to gain power and to stay in power. I was looking at this one. Prior to looking at this one, Google did a total search of every single state in the country, and it ranked the 5 worst states where people are in the most financial trouble. Number 1 was Texas. Number 2 was Florida. Number 3 was Louisiana. Number 4 was Nevada. Number 5 was South Carolina. Do you see a pattern there? The guy speaking for the Florida Surgeon General, remember, a Harvard educated medical doctor. His last name is Ladapo. I'm just going to call him Dr. Joseph because I can't pronounce his last name. Goes, the Florida Surgeon General delivered some of the day's most forceful remarks as Republican Governor Ron DeSantis says his administration will move the phase out all childhood vaccines mandated in the state. The governor calls this medical freedom. This Dr. Joseph L. denounced vaccine requirements in school and child care fantasies are as an immoral inclusion on parents' rights akin to slavery and hampers parents' abilities to make healthcare decisions for their children. Okay? We'll just make it up to the Wild West. There will be no requirements whatsoever to have any vaccines at all in the state of Florida if the governor and the Surgeon General of Florida has their ways. He also says, the doctor, people have a right to make their own informed decisions. They do not have the right to tell you what to put in your body, taken away from them. But every last one mandate is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Who am I as a government or anyone else to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in their body? I don't have the right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put in your body is because of your relationship with your body and God. If successful, Florida will be the first state to eliminate all mandates. Okay? So if it goes through, I'm a parent, and I decide, oh, if my child gets the vaccination against measles, or chickenpox, or hepatitis, polio, German measles, DTaP, and other vaccines for other diseases for child care and public school attendance. The doctors added that the state health department could scrap certain mandates under its rules while others would require legislative action. There will be a broad package the governor promised, one that seeks to make permanent many of the state's pandemic-era policies curbing vaccine and health mandates. Okay. I decide I don't want my child to have the polio vaccine. My child catches polio and is crippled for the rest of his life. Who pays for that? Am I going to pay for that? Hell no, that's expensive. What happens if my child catches polio and has to spend the rest of his life in the iron lung? Oh, maybe my child gets German measles and goes deaf. Maybe my child gets the mumps and goes sterile. You know those little minor things? Maybe my child gets whooping cough, and then guess what? Maybe they pass it on to other children and other children. Then who takes care of these children who have to suffer the rest of their lives because their parent, and I'm not being any religious, but their parent said, God told me not to give my child this vaccine. So if I get polio and I get crippled for life, or I get mumps and I can't have children, or German measles, like I said, and I go deaf, or I don't get that treatment for my baby that's born, and holy crap, I didn't realize I had syphilis, and my child is going to be blind for the rest of its life. Do those children have a right to sue their parents for neglect? Because I would say yes, because probably 95% of medical people would say yes. These are really good. Okay? When's the last time you saw a kid with polio, or mumps, or measles, German measles, whooping cough? Okay? They were quite common when I was a kid. I had the mumps, I had the chickenpox, I had the measles, I had the German measles, I even had scarlet fever when we were all quarantined in the house. Okay? That stuff happens. They related, oh, your son or your daughter has measles or chickenpox. let's get them all together so they can catch it and get away. We don't have to have it all spread out. So these are adults, educated adults, who are preying on the lower levels of society and preying on the religious, the fundamental religious people that say no vaccines, no vaccines. And we have our Robert Kennedy Jr. saying, oh no, we don't need vaccines. Nope. Well, did he vaccinate his kids? Okay. So what happens? Does an unvaccinated kid who is a potential serious, could be life and death medical threat to other students, does that individual have a right to go to a school or a daycare unvaccinated? Or maybe we solve the problem. We'd be like New Hampshire's Freedom Accounts or Arizona's educational accounts, Florida. So what we do is say, okay, here's $7,500. Find a place to educate your kid. Hey, maybe there'll be a school for all unvaccinated kids. You can go to that school and you don't have to be vaccinated. So if one person gets one of those critical diseases, chances are you're all going to get it. And which adult will take responsibility for what happens to those children? To me, this is adults not caring about the children. It's saying we're going to leave the health of our children in the hands of God, in the hands of my God. My God will determine whether they get sick, and if they get sick, how bad they get sick, and whether they live or die. I like to believe my God granted people the wisdom to create vaccines so all my children could be healthy, and I wouldn't have to worry about my children dying in childbirth or suffering consequences for the rest of their lives. Okay. Come across this article. They went in and they looked all at a whole bunch of different things. And so they've decided there are 5 wealth classes in the United States. The bottom 25, the lower middle class, the upper middle class, the upper class, and the wealthy class. So they say the lower middle class because, that's politically correct, and we don't want to offend them by calling them the working class or different things like that. And again, when people talk about wealth, in a lot of cases, wealth has little to do with income. You could make $200,000 a year and basically have no wealth. And people just say, they want to relate wealth to income. But wealth is what you're worth. So if you sold everything everything you had, if you had a house, you had a car, you had some jewelry, things like that, you had money in the bank or money in an IRA, and you took all that and paid off all your bills, how much money would you be worth? If you're in the bottom 25%, you would be worth $29,300 or less. That's right, $29,300. Imagine working 40, 45 years and not being worth $30,000. And you go, how is it possible I can be okay? Guess what? You know that $60,000 car that you bought that you have a 7-year loan? If you pay $60,000 and the car depreciates 25% in the first year, the car is worth $45,000 and your loan may be $55,000. So when you started, it was balanced 0-0. But a year later, you have a $45,000 asset, but you have a $55,000 liability. Okay? But then you go, things like that. You look at your credit card. How much is your credit card going up? The balance, that's a liability. How many credit cards do you have? They're all liabilities. But then you've got the lower middle class, $29,300 to $209,000. You go, oh, $209,000. Is that a lot of money? When they talk about worth, okay. My house is paid off. I don't have a mortgage on my house. They can say, hey, Mr. Roberts, your house is worth $200,000. Okay? So if they say my house is worth $200,000, that means when I take all my other things like my car and, like I said, jewelry and savings, checking account, savings bonds, all that up and subtract what I owe, that means basically I'm worth $9,000. Minus my house, I'm worth $9,000. I would have to sell my $200,000 house to have access to my $209,000 worth. Upper middle class, $209,000 to $714,000. Okay? There's a lot of people living on Social Security and Keene, just trying to scrape by day-to-day expenses, especially the older one. And their house can be $350,000. It's paid off and it's $350,000. So all of a sudden they're up in the middle class, upper middle class, but they may be only, husband and wife may be only taking in $40,000 a year on Social Security. So Social Security, like, oh man, two people, couple, $440,000 a year on Social Security and just barely getting by, but they're considered upper middle class. Upper class, $714 to $2.1 million. Okay? You can be in California. A $2.1 million house isn't much at all. But if you have it paid off, you're getting $2.1 million. and you may not have enough money coming in. Like a lot of people who lost their house in fire, their house was paid off and the house had a value. But even if they got paid 100% for the house, they could not afford to buy a new house or to rebuild. So again, it's kind of like you're property rich, but your day-to-day living is poor. The wealthiest 10% is 2.1 million net worth. Again, depending on where you live, some of the places around Boston, New York, Chicago, the big cities in California, 2.1 million is not a big house. That's on the bottom of the ladder. So again, it's one, you may have bought that house at 200,000 35 years ago, and it's now up to 2.1 million. Your net worth has increased in value over the years. But if you want money, you have to go get a home equity loan or things like that. But when you go get a home equity loan, you lower your worth, your net worth. And so when you go and look, right now, the median income for workers in the United States is $44,102. So basically, 50% of the people in the United States who work full-time make less than $44,000. So if you look at that, so if you work 40 years, that means you make $1.7 million if you're just an average Joe or Mary working. Okay. Just think, under 35, the medium net worth is $39,000. 50% of the people under the age of 35 are only worth $39,000 or less. And you go, wait a minute, if I graduate out of college in 22 and now it's 13 years later, well, for a lot of people, they may have graduated out of college with $50,000, $60,000 in student loans, and they find out gender studies, racial studies, music, art, dance. You were sold a bill of goods because you can't get a job that pays enough that's going to help you pay off your student loans. So for a lot of people, at best, they're just paying the interest, and the balance stays there, and that's still a liability. So, yeah, even if you would go save, which is really kind of dumb, because you should be paying off the student loan so you don't have to pay interest, so you can put money into the bank to save. Because if your student loan is at 7%, you're not going to get 7% from the bank. Okay. Like I said about people retiring, at 65 to 74, 50% of the people in that age bracket have less than $401,000 net worth. Okay? Well, they can have a $300,000 house, money in the same, but it means that they don't have a lot of money in the 401 or the IRA. You know, if you're 55 to 64 and you're getting ready to retire, 350% have $364,000 in net worth. And so let's see. So if I started at 22 and I worked for 40 years and getting that $50,000 a year, that means I'd make $2 million between 22 and 62. So if I made $2 million and then all of a sudden I'm 62 and I look at the value of my house, I look at the value of the money in my savings account, checkings account, 401k, and Roth, and I want to get $364,000. Okay? How far is $364,000 going to take me? If I'm 64 years old, getting retired, I have $364,000, and I have $300,000 tied up in my house. That's $64,000 left. That's all I would have. That isn't much choices. Do I go on vacation? Do I do this? Do I visit my grandchildren, my children, my grandchildren? Or do I stay home and eat mashed potatoes and really poor grade of beef? Or I make believe I'm back in college and doing ramen noodles? And you know, if you have to go to a nursing home, the going rate for a nursing home is $150,000 to $180,000 a year. So if I'm 65 to 74 and I have $410,000 and I have to go to a nursing home, I have wiped out all my worth in about 30 months, between 30 to 36 months. And then on to Medicaid. So it's kind of like the upper class net worth may still mean a middle class lifestyle. As some assets like homes are not liquid, having wealth tied up in your primary residence really limits your financial flexibility. And so and then being in the top 10. While 2.1 million net worth can buy a lavish lifestyle in some markets, the high cost areas like San Francisco where she works, she considers $5 million to be the lower threshold for high net worth. So, okay, 2.1 million net worth puts you in the top 10%, but you live in San Francisco and they saying, well, you better have $5 million net worth because that'll give you $200,000 a year annually to live on, but $200,000 doesn't go very far in some of those places like San Francisco and some of those other places. And millenniums, millenniums think they need $847,000 to be financially comfortable. And this guy goes, I think 2 million of net worth, assuming a good chunk of that is outside of your home equity, goes pretty far towards making your time your own and relieving money-related stress. And so, kind of like, again, net worth, what it's going is, one thing you should ask yourself about net worth, look around your house and look at all the stuff that you spent money on that only gave you a one-time high, or you hardly ever used or haven't used. Every time you get sucked up in consumerism and you buy something that you don't need, you subtract from your net worth. You subtract, oh, look at that $100 shirt. That looked really good. Oh crap, I only wore it once. But if I would have took that $100 and put it in my 401k, or if I put it in savings, I'd be $100 greater in net worth. But we as a society are so caught up in consumerism that we give away our net worth. Thing, oh, I buy a $200,000 house, depending on what my interest rate is, I'm going to be paying $500,000 to $600,000. I could be paying 2.5 to 3 times the value of that house. And so it might take 15, 20 years of appreciation on that house to cover the $300,000, possibly $400,000 I paid in interest. But no, they want you to keep buying all this other stuff that subtracts from your net worth, or it's like, holy crap, if I would have paid every 15 days on a mortgage, shoot, I may have cut the mortgage down by 7-8 years. I may have saved $150,000 in interest. Again, it's subtracting for your potential net worth and giving it to the banks. So what has happened is, so how do you go and make $2 million or possibly $3 million working in your lifetime and only be worth $400,000 when you get ready to retire? Consumerism. Consumerism is addictive. It's just like a drug. It's just like alcohol. We are bombarded to buy stuff that we do not need. In a lot of cases, we don't even want. And why do they call people influencers? Their whole job is to convince you to buy something we don't want or we don't need. The more we buy, the more they get paid. So their job is not to tell you the truth. Their self-interest is to sell you a falsehood, to sell you a beautiful falsehood, so you will go out and buy. You will sacrifice your net worth to buy stuff. And imagine being 54 years old. You've been working at least 22 years, and in 22 years, you're worth $247,000. And chances are, the vast majority of that net worth is in your house. Something's wrong there. We have to start thinking about ourselves. Do we have to buy this? Do we? Because otherwise, if we continue to do this, the majority of us will be placed in hellhole warehouse funded by Medicaid. That is not what you want to do. You don't want to spend your whole life in bingo. When I work at veterans, I'm working at a lot of elderly veterans. I look at widows and I look at the financials. I'm going, holy crap, how did this happen? You know, I look at one, I had one individual, almost $1.5 million house. Bingo. But when we look, it's like, holy crap, got none. Had another one. House was over $300,000. When it was sold and it took the first and second mortgage and other stuff out, it was worth less than $40,000. That was the net worth. Okay, we don't have much money as we get older, net worth as we get older, and there's scammers left and right out there to suck every single penny out of us people 55 and older. They're the scumbags of the earth. And all I can wish is that it happens to them. But now the next one. Shifting to AI. What all kinds of AI? Well, there is two types of AI, and they have two functions. But people just say AI. Okay? Have you ever heard of HLAI? We heard of AI, but have you heard of LHAI? LHAI is considered human-like artificial intelligence. AI is supposed to work and cooperate with humans to make them more efficient in knowledge. ALHI, in theory, is supposed to increase productivity, increase leisure, and perhaps more profoundly, a better understanding of our own minds. Let's get into that. Increase productivity. Increase leisure. And perhaps most profoundly, better understanding of our human minds. How many people go and say, you know what, this is great. I won't have to work. I have leisure, and I can sit around like Aristotle and Socrates and say, what is the meaning of life? What is the function of the human mind? because with ALHI, it will create machines that become better substitutes for human labor. Workers lose economic and political bargaining power and become increasingly dependent on those who control the technology. So if I create HLAI, they're not help to augment, which regular AI is focused on augmenting humans rather than mimic them. Humans retain the power to insist on a share of the value created. What more, augmentation creates new capabilities and new products and service, ultimately generating far more than mere human-like AI. Okay? AI can help a doctor make a better decision, can do better road planning. There's a whole bunch of things. Can help teachers teach kids. But LHAI says, we don't need doctors. We can do it. We don't need lawyers or accountants. We don't need teaching because we're going to produce machines that do exactly what they're made for. We want to make a machine for education. We don't need educators because the machines not only can do it, but they can do it better. Same thing being a doctor, robot surgery. They'll do this and they get to a point where they get to create new machines, better machines. Dozens of companies are working on robots as human-like, and if not more so, as those described ancient texts. So, yeah, I'm a nerdy type of guy. I can't get along. I don't know how to ask the beautiful girl out for a date, and I want to do this. Hey, I can just go online and I can go, hey, AI, this is the type of woman I want. This is her measurement. This is her hair. This is her intellect. This is all the stuff I want. And they go, this is what language I want to speak, everything. Bingo. Then it's delivered to my house and now I have the companion I've always wanted. And in some cases, people want to marry their life-like AI person. First it was sex robots, people made, but now some of them are real life-like, and they're like regular companion. Will do the stuff around the house and all this other kind of stuff. You can have a conversation. You can stay in your own little world, and you do not have to engage in the outside world. On the increasingly human-like artificial intelligence, powerful AI systems are crossing key thresholds, matching human in a growing number of fundamental tasks as image recognition, speech recognition, with applications from automated vehicles, medical diagnosis to inventory management and product recommendation. AI is appearing in more and more product and processes. These breakthroughs are both fascinating and exhilarating. They have profound economic implications, just as earlier general purpose technologies like the steam engine and the electric catalyst to restructuring of the economy. Okay, But on the other side, in the coming decades, machine intelligence will become increasingly powerful and persuasive. We can expect record wealth created as a result. So here it is saying AI is going to create all this wealth. And so what we want to do is AI is good. It's going to create wealth. Unbelievable amount of wealth. Unimaginable amount of wealth. But replicating human capabilities is valuable not only because of its practical potential for reducing the need for human labor, but also it can help us build more robust and flexible form of intelligence. As HLAI could help us understand more about ourselves, we appreciate and comprehend the human mind better when we work to create an artificial one. The individual who wrote this is head of basically the AI department in Stanford University. So when he's writing it from his perspective. He wants AI. He sees the benefits of AI. But he also lists some of the potential negatives. When AI augments human capabilities, enabling people to do things they've never could before, then humans and machines are complements. Complementarity implies that people remain indispensable for value creation and retain bargaining power in labor markets and in political decision making. Okay, so just think of Star Wars. RD2 and CPO, they work with Luke. And they help Luke do better things. They do not replace Luke. They help Luke to be better. But HLAI replicates and automates existing human capabilities. Machines become better substitutes for human labor, and workers lose economic and political bargaining power. Entrepreneurs and executives who have access to machines with capabilities that replicate those of humans for a given task can and will replace humans in those tasks. A fully automated economy could, in principle, be structured to redistribute the benefits from production widely, even to those who are no longer strictly necessary for value creation. However, the beneficiaries would be in a weak bargaining position to prevent a change in the distribution that left them with little or nothing. They would depend precariously on the decisions of those that control the technology, thus opening the door to increased concentration of wealth and power. See how he got right here. Even to those who are no longer strictly necessary for value creation. That is a really, really dangerous statement. Even those who are no longer strictly necessary for value creation. So, if I come in to Keene and go to, say, the old Kingsbury property and put a big there, or say the old Smith, and put a big economic structure there. And I create things there. I have everything is automated. Everything is sorted. Everything is loaded on trucks. All my trucks are autonomous, don't need any driver. Okay? So I become the biggest taxpayer in Keene. Okay? And I go, you know what? There's 3,700 kids in the Keene School District. Looking at it, I plugged all the stuff into AI and AI's projection going forward. So I have 300 kids go into kindergarten this year, and AI projects only 17 will be strictly necessary for creating increased value, increased wealth. Okay? As a business owner who has all this AI, and I have all of these HLAIs, which does everything humans do, but if not better, why would I want to support educating all these kids that when they grow up will not be creating value? And now, if they're not going to be creating value, who's going to be paying for the housing? Who's going to be paying? So when you're looking at this with those little small sentence, even to those, they want, in principle, be structured to redistribute the benefit from production widely, even to those who are no longer strictly necessary for value creation. So what we're saying is, okay, these two people, they get pregnant, they have a kid, but they're not necessary for value creation. We have AI determined that the child would not be beneficial to value. Okay, where do they live? Who pays for their housing? Who pays for their food? So that's where you get the really nasty thing is HLAI can create excess people. And the thing is, what does the government do with us excess people? Us over 65, maybe be determined once you get to 50, you've lost your ability to create value. So HLAI, building machines designed to replace people and others, are more sophisticated metric of human-like intelligence. On one hand, it is the path to unprecedented wealth, increased leisure, robust intelligence, and even a better understanding of ourselves. On the other hand, HLAI leads machines to automation rather than augment human labor. It creates the risk of concentrating wealth and power, and with that concentration comes the pearl of being trapped in an equilibrium where those without power have no way to improve their outcome. So, if you cannot create value, you are now stuck in a situation you really kind of put over here. You really, the old term, you put out the pasture because you have now become a liability. you are no longer an asset. And someone has to pay for that liability. But even if there's a great bunch of us that have put out the pasture, because we have no value, we don't have the ability to create value, we have little to no political power. Texas redistricting, California redistricting, Missouri wants to do it. Because the group up here don't care for the people down here because they're poor, they do not contribute to the economy, and they don't have any political power. Because if you see what's going on right now, we've played this game with automation and stuff, and so we had more and more people who could not get a job to pay for the daily expenses. Even if they didn't go out and get caught up into the consumerism and buying crap they didn't have, they couldn't get a good paying job. So the federal government, between food stamps, subsidized housing, and Medicaid, is using tax funds to do that. And the tax funds have put us into deeper and deeper debt, while the companies and corporations were able to make mega wealth. When technologies augment human labor, they tend to reduce the marginal value of the worker's contribution, and more of the gain goes to the owners, entrepreneurs, inventors, and architects of the new system. Okay. People need to go in and read about AI, not something on MSC or CNBC or whatever. Go in, find deep reports, and read about AI. It's not all what it's cracked up to be.